Hello, everyone. Tonight, you will descend into the longest darkness humanity has ever endured, where the sun abandons the sky for 5 months and snow buries entire villages so deep that the world above becomes a distant memory. Imagine waking one morning to discover that the storm has sealed you beneath the earth, that daylight has vanished completely, and that your survival now depends on nothing but patience, community, and the ancient wisdom passed down through generations of people who learned to thrive where others would perish. Before you settle in, take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if you truly enjoy what I create here. And if you want to share, tell me where you are in the world and what time it is right now. Now, dim the lights. You stand at the entrance of your family's shelter and watch the sky turn from gray to purple to black. The sun, which has been sinking lower each day for weeks, finally touches the horizon and slips beneath it like a stone dropping into deep water. The light fades so quickly that you can almost feel the darkness rushing in to fill the void. Cold wraps around your face immediately, sharp and absolute, turning your breath into crystals that sparkle briefly before vanishing into the frozen air. This is the beginning of polar night. For the next 147 days, the sun will not rise above the horizon. The world will exist in perpetual twilight at best, complete darkness at worst. The stars will become your ceiling, the aurora your only natural light, and the cold will test every boundary of human endurance. You are not afraid. Your people have done this for thousands of years. The knowledge of survival lives in your bones, passed down through countless generations who faced this same darkness and emerged into spring. You know the rhythms of polar night the way you know your own heartbeat. But knowing something and living it are different things, and this winter will test you in ways you cannot yet imagine. The village sits on the edge of the frozen sea, a collection of 32 shelters arranged in a rough circle around a central gathering space. 47 people call this place home, from the eldest grandmother who remembers winters that killed entire families, to the youngest infant born just 3 months ago, still unaware of the world he has entered. The shelters are built low to the ground, their walls thick with insulation, their entrances facing away from the prevailing winds. They have stood for generations, rebuilt and reinforced each summer, designed to withstand anything the Arctic can deliver. But the storm that arrives on the third night of polar night is unlike anyone has seen. It begins with a sound, a low moan that rises from the horizon and builds into a shriek that seems to come from everywhere at once. The wind hits the village like a wall, knocking people off their feet, tearing loose anything not secured. Snow flies horizontally, so thick you cannot see your hand in front of your face. The temperature drops 20 degrees in minutes, plunging into a cold so severe that exposed skin freezes in seconds. You barely make it inside your shelter before the full force of the storm arrives. Your family huddles around the central fire, listening to the wind tear at the walls, feeling the structure shake with each gust. The sound is deafening, a constant roar that drowns out speech and thought. You can only wait, watching the flames flicker, praying the walls will hold. The storm lasts 3 days. 3 days of unrelenting wind and snow. 3 days of darkness so complete that you lose all sense of time. 3 days of wondering if the world outside still exists. You sleep in fits and starts, waking to check the fire, to listen for changes in the wind, to make sure everyone is still breathing. The food stores hold, the walls hold. Your sanity just barely holds. When the wind finally dies, the silence feels almost painful. Your ears ring from the absence of sound. You sit motionless for several minutes, waiting, not quite believing it is over. Then your father, a man named Eric, rises slowly and moves toward the entrance. The tunnel that leads outside is gone. Where the doorway should be, there is only a wall of packed snow, solid and unyielding. Eric pushes against it, but it does not move. The storm has buried you. He turns back to face the family, his expression calm but serious. "We dig," he says simply, "and so you begin." The work takes hours. You and your brother, a young man named Lars, take turns with bone shovels, carving a narrow passage through the compacted snow. The cold bites at your hands, even through thick mittens. Sweat freezes on your forehead. Your muscles burn with effort. But slowly, inch by inch, the tunnel grows. When you finally break through to the surface, the sight that greets you stops your breath. The village is gone. Where 32 shelters once stood, there are now only smooth white mounds rising from a featureless plain of snow. The storm has buried everything under drifts that reach 15 feet high in places. The world has been erased, transformed into a frozen desert with no landmarks, no paths, no signs of human presence. You climb out of the tunnel and stand on the surface, turning slowly, trying to orient yourself. The darkness is absolute. No stars visible, no aurora, just black sky meeting white ground in a line you can barely distinguish. The cold wraps around you like a living thing, finding every gap in your clothing, testing every boundary of your body's warmth. Then you see them. Small columns of smoke rising from the snow in different directions, marking where other shelters lie buried beneath the drifts. The village is still there, still alive, just hiding. You are not alone. The elder grandmother, a woman named Helena, who has seen 87 winters, calls the first gathering that evening. People emerge from their buried shelters through hastily dug tunnels, climbing to the surface and walking across the snow to the central meeting place. The fire pit has been excavated, flames now burning in a deep bowl carved into the drift. Faces glow orange in the flickering light, eyes reflecting both fear and determination. Helena speaks slowly, her voice carrying the weight of decades of experience. She has survived polar nights that killed half the village. She has seen storms that buried the world and famines that reduced strong men to shadows. She knows what the community faces, and she knows what must be done. "The storm has changed our winter," she says. "The snow is deeper than any I remember. Our food caches may be lost beneath the drifts. Our hunting will be harder. Our survival will require everything we have." She pauses, letting the words sink in. The fire crackles softly. The cold presses against the circle of warmth like a patient predator. "But we have survived worse," Helena continues. "Our ancestors faced ice ages that lasted generations. They crossed frozen oceans with nothing but courage and skill. They built lives in places the world said were impossible. We carry their strength in our blood. We will not fail them." The gathering lasts for hours. Decisions are made, responsibilities assigned,
plans developed for the months ahead. The food stores are assessed and found to be adequate but not abundant. Hunting parties are organized, schedules established, emergency protocols reviewed. The community transforms from a collection of families into a single organism, each part supporting the others. You volunteer for the first hunting party. The group consists of 6 people, all experienced, all carrying weapons and tools passed down through generations. The leader is a man named Thomas, your father's oldest friend, a hunter whose skills are legendary throughout the region. He has killed polar bears with nothing but a spear. He has tracked seals across ice so thin it cracked with every step. He knows the frozen sea better than anyone alive. The journey begins in what passes for morning, a few hours when the sky lightens from black to deep purple. You travel in single file, each person stepping in the footprints of the one ahead to conserve energy. The cold is extraordinary, a physical force that seems to push against you with every step. Your breath freezes instantly, coating your face covering with ice that must be cleared constantly to avoid suffocation. Thomas leads the group away from the village, following a route marked by stone cairns that rise above even the deepest drifts. These markers have stood for generations, maintained each summer, guiding hunters across the featureless landscape. Without them, navigation would be nearly impossible. The polar night offers no sun to mark direction, no shadows to indicate time. Only the cairns and the stars provide orientation.
You walk for hours, stopping occasionally to rest and share water from skin bags kept warm against your body. The landscape is utterly barren, white snow stretching to the horizon in every direction, broken only by occasional pressure ridges where the sea ice has buckled and fractured. The silence is profound, broken only by the crunch of footsteps and the whisper of wind across the drifts. Then Thomas stops. He stands motionless, head tilted slightly, listening to something you cannot hear. The group waits, barely breathing, watching him read signs invisible to untrained eyes. "Seal," he says finally, pointing toward a spot in the distance. "Breathing hole, maybe 2 hours away." The hunt begins in earnest. You approach the area Thomas indicated with extreme caution, spreading out, moving silently, taking positions around a small dark spot in the ice where a seal periodically surfaces to breathe. The wait that follows is the hardest part of hunting. You must remain absolutely still, absolutely silent for as long as it takes. Hours, sometimes days. The cold seeps through every layer of clothing, numbing your body degree by degree. Your mind drifts, thoughts blurring, awareness fading to a single point of focus. The seal surfaces without warning. One moment the breathing hole is empty, the next a dark shape appears, whiskers glistening, eyes blinking in the darkness. Thomas moves with speed that seems impossible, his harpoon striking before you even register the motion. The seal thrashes once, twice, then goes still. The hunt is successful. The journey back to the village feels endless. You carry the seal on a sled, its weight a precious burden, each step bringing food closer to hungry families. The darkness presses against you, the cold tests your limits, exhaustion clouds your thoughts. But you keep moving, one foot in front of the other, because stopping is not an option. When you finally reach the village,
people emerge from their snow tunnels to greet you. The seal is received with quiet gratitude, divided according to ancient customs, distributed to ensure every family receives their share. You eat your portion that night, feeling the rich meat warm your body from the inside, restoring strength you did not know had lost. The days develop their own rhythm. Without sunrise to mark time, the village creates its own patterns. Work periods alternate with rest periods, hunting trips with recovery days. The darkness becomes familiar, almost comfortable. Your eyes adjust, finding shapes in the faintest starlight. Your body adapts, conserving heat, slowing its rhythms to match the demands of survival. But the challenges never stop. 2 weeks into the polar night, a new crisis emerges. One of the food caches, a storage pit dug deep into the permafrost and filled with preserved meat and fish, cannot be located. The storm buried it under drifts so deep that the markers are gone, the landmarks erased. Days of searching reveal nothing.
The cache contained enough food to feed the village for 2 weeks. Without it, the rations must be reduced. Helena calls another gathering. The news is delivered calmly but seriously. Food will be distributed more carefully. Portions will be smaller. The hunting parties must work harder. The margin between survival and starvation has narrowed. You feel the tension spread through the community. People speak less, save their energy, watch their children with worried eyes. The cold seems sharper now, the darkness heavier. The polar night has only begun, and already the village faces its first real test. The response is remarkable. Instead of panic, the community finds strength. Families share food voluntarily, giving portions to those with young children. Hunters volunteer for extra trips, pushing themselves to bring in more meat. The elderly reduce their own rations, insisting the young need the calories more. The crisis reveals not weakness, but the deep bonds that hold the village together. You join more hunting parties, leaving the village every few days, traveling farther across the frozen sea in search of game. The work is exhausting, but necessary. Each seal, each fish, each successful hunt adds days to the village's survival. You learn to read the ice the way Thomas does, sensing where animals might be found, understanding the rhythms of life in a world that seems lifeless. The aurora appears on a night so cold that breath freezes before it leaves your lips. You are on the surface, checking the entrance tunnels, when the sky begins to glow. Green light ripples across the darkness, dancing and shifting like something alive. Purple joins the green, then pink, then colors you have no names for. The display spreads from horizon to horizon, painting the snow in impossible shades, transforming the frozen world into something magical. The entire village emerges to watch. People stand in the bitter cold, faces turned upward, transfixed by the beauty above them. Children point and gasp, elders weep silently. The aurora moves in patterns that seem almost purposeful, as if some great hand is painting messages across the sky. No one speaks. The moment feels sacred, a gift from the darkness that has demanded so much from them. The cold becomes irrelevant. The fear and worry and exhaustion fade into the background. There is only the light, and you are part of it. The display lasts for hours. When it finally fades, you return to your shelter with something new in your heart. The polar night has shown you terror, but it has also shown you wonder. The world is not simply cruel. It is complex, capable of beauty even in its harshest forms. The weeks accumulate like snow. 1 month passes, then 2.
The food situation stabilizes as the hunters find reliable sources of game. The community settles into its rhythm, each person playing their role, each task fitting into the larger pattern of survival.
The village mourns each loss, but the grieving must be brief. The polar night does not pause for sorrow. Anna's fever reaches its peak on the 12th day. She burns so hot that touching her skin is like touching stone that has sat beside a fire. Her breathing becomes shallow and labored, each breath a struggle that seems to drain her further. You sit beside her through the darkest hours, holding her hand, speaking to her of spring, of sunlight, of the child waiting for her to recover. On the 14th day, her fever breaks. You feel the change before you see it, a subtle shift in her breathing, a relaxation in her grip. Her eyes flutter open, confused at first, then clearing. She looks at you and smiles weakly. She is alive. She will survive. The recovery is slow but steady. As the days pass, more patients turn the corner. The fever runs its course and moves on, leaving exhausted but living people in its wake. The quarantine shelter begins to empty. Families are reunited. The village exhales a breath it did not know it was holding. 17 people died. The number is spoken quietly, repeated in whispers, absorbed into the collective memory of the community. 17 souls who will not see the returning sun. 17 names added to the long list of those lost to polar winter. But 30 people in quarantine survived. The village continues. The aftermath of the sickness changes the community in subtle ways. People hold each other closer, speak more kindly, share more freely. The brush with death has reminded everyone of what matters. Petty grievances dissolve. Old conflicts fade. The village emerges from the crisis more united than before. Helena addresses the community on the night the quarantine officially ends. Her voice is tired, but strong, her words carrying the weight of her experience. We have lost people we loved, she says. We will carry them with us always. But we have also proven something important. We have proven that our community is stronger than any sickness, any storm, any darkness. We survive because we choose to survive together. The words settle into the cold air, absorbed by every listener. You feel them in your chest, a warmth that has nothing to do with fire. The polar night has taken much, but it has also revealed something precious: the strength of connection, the power of shared endurance. The middle months of polar night pass in a rhythm that becomes almost comfortable. Hunt, eat, sleep, repeat. The darkness loses its terror, becoming simply the backdrop against which life unfolds. Your eyes have adjusted so completely that you can navigate the village by starlight alone. Your body has learned to conserve heat, to slow its processes, to survive on less than you ever thought possible. The hunters range farther and farther across the frozen sea, following animal trails that lead to new sources of food. You travel with them often, learning skills that have been passed down for thousands of years. How to read ice thickness by its color. How to sense approaching storms by the behavior of birds. How to find direction by the stars when clouds hide the familiar constellations. Thomas becomes your primary teacher. He speaks little but shows much,
demonstrating techniques through action rather than explanation. You learn to move as he does, to see as he does, to think as he does. The frozen world begins to reveal its secrets, layer by layer, like a language slowly becoming intelligible. One expedition takes you farther than you have ever traveled. The hunting party follows rumors of a large seal colony 3 days' journey from the village. The ice is treacherous, cracked and refrozen in patterns that require constant attention. Progress is slow, exhausting, and dangerous. On the second night, you make camp in the shelter of a pressure ridge, huddling together for warmth, eating dried meat and melted snow. The aurora appears again, weaker than before, but still beautiful, painting the ice in soft green light. You watch it through heavy eyelids, too tired to feel wonder, too alive to feel nothing. Thomas speaks suddenly, breaking a silence that has lasted for hours. "My grandfather told me something when I was young," he says. "He said the polar night is a teacher. It shows us what we can survive. It strips away everything unnecessary until only the essential remains." You consider his words, too tired to respond, but understanding their truth. The polar night has stripped much from you. Comfort, certainty, the illusion that the world is safe. But it has also revealed strength you did not know you possessed, connections you took for granted, a capacity for endurance that seems almost inhuman. "What did you learn?" you ask finally. Thomas is quiet for a long moment. "I learned that I am small," he says. "The ice, the dark, the cold, they are vast beyond comprehension. I am nothing against them. But I am also part of something larger. My people, my community, the long chain of ancestors who survived before me. Together, we are not so small." The seal colony proves to be everything the rumors suggested. You and the hunting party harvest more meat than you can carry, caching the excess in the ice for later retrieval. The return journey is triumphant, each step bringing abundance back to the waiting village. The celebration that follows is the largest of the polar night. All 47 surviving villagers gather around the central fire, sharing food and stories, laughing and singing in ways that seem impossible in such a harsh place. The children stay up late, playing in the tunnels, their joy a defiance of the darkness that surrounds them. Helena rises to speak, and the gathering falls silent. Her face glows in the firelight, lined with age, but bright with life. She looks around at the assembled community, her family, her legacy, her reason for enduring through so many winters. "I have lived 87 years.
And this will see the new era." Elena speaks, her voice cracking with emotion. "We survived," she says. "We survived." The words are simple, but they contain everything. 5 months of darkness, storms that buried the world, sickness that took 17 lives, hunger that gnawed at empty stomachs, fear that crept through the longest nights, and through it all, the quiet determination to endure, to continue, to live. The sun traces a low arc across the sky, barely climbing above the horizon before sinking again. But it will climb higher tomorrow, and higher still the day after. Each day will bring more light, more warmth, more life. The worst is over. The celebration lasts for days. People share food and stories, laughing and crying in equal measure.
The tunnels that connected the buried village are gradually abandoned as the snow begins to settle and melt. The shelters emerge from their white cocoons, their walls seeing daylight for the first time in months. You sit with your family around your own fire on the third night after sunrise. Your father, Eric, your brother, Lars, your mother, whose name is Sarah, and your grandmother who shares Helena's wisdom, if not her years. The faces around you are thinner than they were at the start of polar night, marked by the hardships of the season. But they are alive. You are all alive. Eric speaks slowly, his voice carrying the weight of the season's experiences. I have lived through many polar nights, he says, but this one was different, harder than most, worse than many, and yet, somehow, also more meaningful. You understand what he means. The difficulties have forged something stronger than existed before. Connections have deepened, skills have developed, understanding has grown. You are not the same person who watched the sun set 5 months ago. You have been transformed by the darkness, shaped by the cold, taught by the endless night. What will you remember? Sarah asks, looking around at each family member. Lars speaks first. The hunting, he says, learning to read the ice, feeling like part of something ancient. Your grandmother smiles. The stories, she says, sitting together in the dark, sharing memories of those who came before. Eric nods slowly. The community, he says, watching people come together when everything seemed lost. The question turns to you, and you consider it carefully. So much has happened. The storms, the sickness, the aurora, the hunger, the hope. Each experience has left its mark. The warmth, you say, finally. Not just from fire, but from people. Learning that warmth is something we create together. The words feel true as you speak them. The polar night has taught you many lessons, but this one matters most. Warmth is not just temperature. It is connection, community, the choice to care for each other when caring is hardest. The cold can take everything, but it cannot take that. The weeks that follow bring changes that seem miraculous after the long darkness.
The sun climbs higher each day, filling the sky with light that feels almost overwhelming after months of starlight and aurora. The snow begins to melt, revealing the ground beneath, dark earth and brown grass, and the first hints of green. The sea ice starts to break up, cracking and groaning as the water beneath pushes upward. The sounds are unsettling at first, deep rumbles and sharp cracks that echo across the landscape. But they are also the sounds of spring, of renewal, of life returning to a world that seemed frozen forever. The animals return with the light. Birds appear in increasing numbers, their calls filling the air with sounds that had been absent for months. Seals bask on the remaining ice, fat and lazy after a winter of feeding. The hunting becomes easier, almost generous, as if the land is rewarding the community for its endurance. You help with the spring work, repairing shelters, preparing fishing equipment, planning the journeys that the longer days will allow. The village transforms from a place of survival into a place of activity, everyone busy with tasks that the polar night had made impossible. Helena calls a final gathering as the last traces of winter melt away. The community assembles around the central fire pit, though now it serves more for tradition than warmth. The sun shines overhead, weak but present, a promise of the heat to come. We have survived another polar night, Helena says, one of the hardest in memory. We lost 17 of our people.
We faced storms and sickness and hunger. We endured 5 months of darkness, and we are still here. She looks around at the assembled faces, young and old, strong and tired. The polar night teaches us what we are made of, she continues. It strips away everything unnecessary until only the essential remains. Community, courage, the will to live. These are the things that saved us. These are the things that will save us again. Her words settle into the warming air. You feel their truth in your bones, in your muscles, in your heart. The polar night has ended, but its lessons remain. Endurance, connection, hope. Go now, Helena says. Live the long days. Enjoy the light. But remember the darkness. Remember what it taught you. And when the sun begins to set again, remember that you survived before. You will survive again. The gathering disperses into activity, but you linger by the fire pit. The warmth of the sun feels strange on your skin after so many months of cold. You close your eyes and tilt your face toward the light, letting it soak into you. You think about everything that has happened. The terror of the first storm, watching the village disappear beneath the snow. The exhaustion of the hunting trips, pushing your body beyond limits you did not know existed. The heartbreak of the sickness, watching people you loved fight for their lives. The beauty of the aurora, colors dancing across a sky that seemed only for darkness.
And through it all, the community. People helping each other, sharing food and warmth and hope when all three were in short supply. The village holding together when everything seemed designed to tear it apart. The simple human choice to care for one another, even when caring was hardest. That choice, you realize, is what makes survival possible. Not strength or skill or luck, though all of those matter. What truly saves people is the decision to stand together, to share what they have, to refuse to let the darkness win. You open your eyes and look around at the village. Children are playing in the melting snow, their laughter bright and unburdened. Adults are working on various tasks, their movements efficient and purposeful. The elderly are sitting in the sunlight, faces turned toward the warmth like flowers opening to the day. This is what the polar night preserved. These people, this community, this way of living that has sustained your ancestors for thousands of years. The darkness could not destroy it. The cold could not break it. The challenges only made it stronger. Thomas approaches and stands beside you, looking out at the same scene. Next winter, he says, will you hunt with us again? You do not hesitate. Yes. He nods, satisfied. Good. You have become skilled. The community needs hunters like you. The words settle into you like warmth. You have found your place, your purpose, your contribution to the village's survival. The polar night showed you what you are capable of. Spring gives you the chance to build on what you learned. The sun continues its slow climb across the sky, higher each day, pushing the darkness further and further away. The air grows warmer. The days grow longer, and the world transforms from white to green to gold. Summer arrives in a burst of life that seems impossible after the endless winter. You work through the long days, preparing for the next polar night, even as you celebrate surviving the last one. Food is gathered and preserved, caches dug and filled, tools repaired and stored. The cycle continues, as it has for generations, as it will for generations to come. One evening, as the sun hangs low on the horizon but refuses to set,
You climb to a high point overlooking the village. The view is breathtaking. Green tundra stretching to the horizon, the sea shimmering in the distance, the village nestled in its protected valley. You think about the person you were before the polar night began. Younger, yes, less experienced, but more than that, less aware of what you were capable of, what your community was capable of, what humanity itself was capable of when pushed to its limits. The polar night stripped away everything unnecessary, just as Helena said. It showed you the core of yourself, the essential strength that exists beneath comfort and safety. It taught you that darkness is not something to fear, but something to respect, a teacher rather than an enemy. And it showed you the power of connection.